I guess before we kick off on the actual songs, this album is called Liege and Lief, which means loyal and ready. It's a ye olde English phrase, I imagine about knights retainers or something being loyal and ready for their lord. Do you have any thoughts about what it might mean in this context? Why did they call it that?
I wonder if there is an implication of, hey, we are at the service of this music. We're at the service of this tradition. We are going to be faithful. We are happily faithful to this tradition.
I think the title is to elicit that ye olde feel, like you said. I mean, it could have been loyal and ready, but it's not. It's Liege and Lief. Yeah. It's specifically chosen for that purpose. And I think Omen, I have to agree with Omen. It's like we've clearly covered what is modern, and now we're consciously choosing this old stuff, and we're presenting it. We're ready to present it, and we are loyally presenting it in our way.
And happily.
Yeah. And happily, yeah.
Leafily.
So leafy.
No, and I guess that's what I was thinking about, is them on stage, like, we are your humble servants, we have come to entertain you. And again, I hear that with they are almost consciously putting on a performance for this album.
Yeah.
What was that thing you said last time we spoke, Omen, about, like, you know, the players, they have like
the mumming tradition.
Oh, it's something about giving
yes,
offering yourself to the muse or something like that.
Well, there's two things. One is to say there's a poetic tradition of saying, I'm giving myself over to the muse of this. You know, we see that in Ovid, we see that in Virgil. But there's also kind of, Ian, going off of your more practically minded interpretation of some of this stuff, in the days before dimming theater lights and clocks and things, the way that you would, by necessity, have to start any sort of performance you would want to do is to say, hey, everybody, we're going to start the performance now. And that became codified into all these various, come all ye, we're going to do this is the intro. You know, that was kind of the purpose of the dumb shows that were before the serious plays, to alert people, hey, this is going to happen. And then you would have the prologue. Things
happening over here.
Yeah, and then you have the prologue. That's why in Shakespeare so often you get repeats of the thing. You get reminders in the text. You say, this person, who, by the way, came from here just yesterday. And it's like, well, why does he write that? We know that. We've been listening. Well, no, maybe you stepped out for a beer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the album we discussed on our last very special episode, Songs from the Wood, the title titular beginning track. Everybody, I'm going to sing this song for you. I'm going to tell you this story through this album. It's Minstrel in the Gallery. It's the same thing. Yep.
And that leads us beautifully into the first song on this album.
Yeah,
Come All
absolutely.
Ye. So Come All Ye was actually Sandy Denny original with Ashley Hutchings, and it is literally that. Come all ye from around parts near and far, come and listen to us sing. And basically the song is just, come hear the bass drum guy playing the bass. Come, like, and they even do little like licks in the song where it's like, listen to the guitar man, doodly doodly doo, and they just do that. And it's literally an introduction to everyone. And I think, you know, we talked about this, as you say, with Songs from the Woods, where it's on a technical level, they're saying, come on, let me tell you this tale. But also they're saying, musically, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy.
Yeah.
Like, literally, here's the band.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most explicit version of that.
These are the sounds you're going to hear through this album.
Yeah. And this is a very,
very elemental.
Yeah, very clear version of that, where they just point to the guy and he does like.
It was kind of funny being like virgin ears to this album. So this is my introduction to the band, really. You know, so it was quite interesting to hear this thing start and be like, oh, so this is like American West Country folk rock sound. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, I'll get down with that. And it just isn't. Like, it just, there's other things, even as the song's going on. You know, it starts off kind of, well, you've got like kind of that bluegrass fiddle.
Yeah.
And then you hear kind of blues licks as well. And it's just, oh, right, yeah, it's very much American folk thing, this. And it just becomes everything else, you know. It was a really cool introduction for me.
Omen is actually a licensed virgin ear.
Oh, wow. Just my left one. There's something extremely formulaic about a lot of the old songs, and they've done an amazing job replicating or at least imitating that formula or a sense of a formula that's so strict. And that's actually, to my modern ear, it gets a little bit in the way of me listening to the album. I'm like, yeah, I get it. There's a format, please. But but they obey it so strictly. Come all ye rolling minstrels. The next one is those that dance will start to dance, and those who don't will stay in time. We have the dancers, and then we have a repeat, come all you rolling minstrels. Then we have the fiddler, then come all you rolling minstrels. The professor of the magic touch. Interesting that they avoid desperately saying guitar, and then the drum, and then the bass. But it's very strict. It's just very, very back and forth. I think that is a technological advancement of the time. Going back to the context where there was no amplification, you needed that format so that people could follow it, so that people could know, oh, did I mishear this? No, I know we're in this section.
This is my part.
This is my part. Yes, and also for the audience.
Right.
I mean, also, I think in a folk tradition, this is the electric slide, the folk of our time, where I think it does help to have someone say, okay, we're doing this now. And,
right,
I think, the fact that everyone knows how to do the YMCA, everyone knows that, I think there's this is literally what folk is, that we have a formula we can all follow and participate in the party.
I can't wait for the YMCA revival movement of the of the 2200s.
No, but you jest, but it's I was gonna say happening now probably, and then in 100 years they'll be like, oh yeah, it's these Americans are just trying to rediscover their traditions.
No, you're totally right. It's totally
and it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
I think narratively, something really important here is we've immediately broken the fourth wall. We start this album without a fourth wall in general, which sets us up for a much more collaborative listening experience, as opposed to put on the album, sit down in your armchair, have a little thing of scotch, and just listen. This is get up and dance. This is experience this for yourself, not separated. You are a part of this party. You're a part of this experience.
That's an important distinction. Thank you for distinguishing this, because, if you look at Minstrel in the Gallery, it is presented like a play, and it's a very complex play. You have the, my lords and ladies, we happen upon these minstrels. And then you have the background saying, oh, I don't think they're going to like us. Oh, my God, look down there. And then the music starts, and then the music transforms. It's all of this production. So you're watching a Broadway production of historical music. This is, you're in the threshing pit.
In the town hall or whatever.
With a pint of cider. Yeah, you're there.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. I feel like this invites you in, quite literally. And thus I feel like they can then present a bunch of tales kind of in succession.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel like you're ready to accept the tales.
Yes.
The only other thing I had to say musically about the song is this is the only time where Sandy Denny has the group singing with her.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of got the group sing-along feeling.
The chorus, yep.
But I was like, I think having listened to the previous two albums, she and I guess Richard Thompson, but also probably the others, sing together a little bit. And they were trying to do a male-woman double folk singing thing. This whole album, she doesn't. And I only noticed that because on this song, she does. And it's fine. I don't find them to be particularly intrusive. I think it's just funny to be like the other guy. It's Sandy Denny, and then you're the other guy.
Yeah.
Right.
But it also fits to the feeling of the song, though. It's much more, this is everybody, here are their instruments, and now we all sing to present the rest of this to you.
Yes.
And then it falls back to Sandy, just Sandy for the rest of the album, but still it's more that everybody is contributing in this one main one.
Yeah.
There's something ceremonial about it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There is this idea of we present ourselves. We're so informal these days. And in past centuries there was more of a tradition of saying, I will present myself, even in the way we even say that in language. That phrase still exists in French. If you say, oh, let me introduce you to this person, you say, je vous présente Nick McGill. I present to you this person. So this sense of we are presenting ourselves to you, we're presenting why we're here, we're presenting this instrument, we're presenting this instrument. It's almost like an offering up to the moment of your readiness to be liege and lief to the experience.
Okay, there we go. Okay, this coming together.
I love the kind of the bluegrass element in this, because you know how they have like the one microphone in the middle of the stage, and then, as you mentioned, particular musician, they'll walk up to the microphone and they'll do their bit, and then they'll walk back away, and then
solo,
the next guy comes in, and it's like the fact that they're actually announcing the players, and then they do their little bit. It's kind of like it fills that in my head as someone who's not from the States, that of what that bluegrass folk vibe
Tradition
is.
is. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, and it's the thing that makes it different is the drums and Richard Thompson's guitar, the way he plays. It's kind of more blues, I'd say. He's got this kind of edge of breakup sound to the guitar. It's not clean, it's not overdriven. It's like in that in between place, and I think that's very specific to. Like I could hear that. That's a Les Paul with P90 pickups. I could hear it straight away because there's nothing
Presented
else.
so cleanly.
Yeah, nothing else is fighting with it, and I think that sound is just his sound all the way through the album. It doesn't really deviate from that.
No.
And there's plenty of space for it, and just a really great sound. And did you say it's the fiddle player?
Dave Swarbrick.
And is it him that's responsible for that kind of production arrangement?
That was my feeling. I think he probably did a lot of arranging, and then Joe Boyd is the producer on this.
Right.
So, but I mean, you're right that they keep this, like, in terms of the literal sound, they keep the literal sound pretty much the same throughout the album. They just arrange things interestingly.
Yeah, I find it interesting that, like, the reason I hone in on the fiddle players is the way him and the guitar work together.
Yeah,
it's like it's a really clearly defined sound that works so well. And it does sound kind of modern and new and different in the context of 1969. And again, it just works all the way through the album. Once it's dialed in,
established, they just go with it. So we roll on to the second track, Reynardine. So Reynardine is a classic folk character, and essentially he is a seductive werefox. And the whole story of the song is literally he's just seducing a woman to his castle. So Reynardine is the sneaky fox. I'm assuming this is a folk trope as old as time. A trickster hero, but also a furry. But also probably a vampire. And then I got to thinking, is not a vampire a human furry for a bat?
Wow.
Like, is it not all the...
So the bat is in the human costume?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I feel like there's conventions where all the bats get together and they dress like humans. And
Yeah. They call them skinnies.
No, but I think like it's all blobbed into one kind of, dare I say, mythology of both trickster god, but then also seductor, which is the vampire thing. Because actually, when I actually look at the words of this song, they do say his teeth doth brightly shine, but other than that, they're not like, oh, the guy was a fox, by the way. You wouldn't know that unless you knew who Reynardine was.
So you're totally right, Ian, in that the notion of the trickster fox goes back to ancient times and probably has something to do with the fact that foxes live in holes and hunt at night and come and steal your chickens, and it's very difficult to catch, and they look so damn handsome you can't be mad.
Yep.
And we have that tradition in the U.S. In Native American culture. It's more associated with the coyote, but it's the same archetype.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when that character kind of anthropomorphized, but there are plenty of other references to foxes. A great example is Fox Went Out. That's an old American-ish folk tune, famously played by, Nick, help me out, Nickel Creek.
Nickel Creek.
So I'm not certain about the vampiric connection here, especially as vampires came to England's consciousness more in the Victorian era, I want to say.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is very much in the tradition of, like, if it's a song about Reynardine, or if there's any variation on that name, you know who this is and you know what kind of behavior this character is going to do because it is that stock character.
And I guess, so the reason, actually, I'll say the reason I thought of vampire for this. So when I think trickster, I think of like someone getting one over on, like, oh, there was some grain up on a hill or whatever, and I found some sneaky way to get it.
Right.
Or like I found a way to unlock the honeypot, essentially.
Uh-huh.
This song is a lot more menacing in the traditional Dracula way. I say traditional as in kind of more the Victorian Dracula way.
Sure.
Where it's like this raw, unbelievable, seductive quality, like the ultimate predator, which is kind of what Dracula in his reinvention was supposed to be. I think the through line there, actually, to get real deep about this, I think the traditions that the old-timey vampire came from was probably more like a werewolf, where it was like an insane, bloodthirsty shapeshifter.
More animalistic as opposed to seductive.
Yeah, and then in the later version, it's like, oh, it's the most courtly gentleman you could ever imagine. His teeth were so shiny, you can't, you literally can't look away. And that's actually what I'm getting from this song. Because I was going to say, I think when I'm like, oh, Renaudine, oh, it's the trickster fox, but I don't really know what he's trickstering in a classic trickster sense.
In this case?
Yeah.
Well, I think that you kind of said it right at the origin point of your trickster research there. I think that in a way, for the observer in this song, one evening as I rambled, we have no idea who the I is. That's just this random bodiless observer. There's something similar to a fox went out and got a chicken, and this foxy guy found a lady unattended and got what he wanted. It reminds me of Velvet Green by Tull. Hey, why don't we go into the back 40? It'll be a real good time, I promise.
I was totally going to say that. Yeah, we were talking about the Velvet Green, and we mentioned how there's always a folk tradition that the mother has passed on. Beware of because someone's going to seduce you and leave, and the implication for them is not much, but for you could be death in childbirth.
Yep.
So you need to grow up being scared of stuff.
And Ed, we see all of that played out in this song. The first thing that the woman says is, hey, I know who you are, so why don't you leave me alone, because I suspect that you're someone bad. And then he says, no, I'm not bad. I was brought up in Venus train. That's kind of a very old Shakespearean phrase, like, I was brought up in the ways of pure love. I'm not a bad guy. I'm a lover. Your beauty so enticed me that I want to take you up to my mountain and guard it with my gun. She's like, okay. She goes with it.
But yeah, I imagine this sort of tale is just it's almost like probably takes up about 30% of all folk traditions.
I would say
because it's so important
in one form or another. Yeah,
because it's so important message for
medieval girls.
Yeah, it's such an important message for mothers to pass down to their daughters and grandmothers to pass down.
And it similarly got adopted. That archetype got adopted as a model for a lot of the rock stars of the modern era. So now instead of saying, "Hey, we should warn you about this kind of sexy guy who can have his way with anybody," they say, "I'm a sexy guy who can have my way with anybody." They've embraced
the other side of the coin. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I guess let's talk real quick then about the music then, how they brought this song to life. So as you said, Ed, they had started with a folksy jam at the top, and then, just kidding, we're going to do guitar swells and cymbals.
But the way it starts, you could just have Sandy Denny singing these lines on her own.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like I say about the kind of not necessarily being an English folk tradition, what you're hearing sounds like more like an Irish, the solo singer
out on stage,
female singing voice on its own. That could totally have happened. But then you get these really deep swells of bass, and those first drums that come through, like the production on that, it's just a beautiful deep bassy sound. It's gorgeous. So much ambience, like there's little drones in there, and the way the reverb swells. It's just from a production perspective, I was just like, whoa, this is taking me somewhere completely different.
Well, and I was going to say, I wonder in that sense, you're saying the kind of single person out in the front, I wonder if the band was trying to capture a certain harmonium sound, where you're going that, just like drone, and it's because the background, obviously, it kind of ebbs and flows, but it's pretty continuous. Like it's just this band of dronage, and
it just fills the spectrum. And funnily enough, as soon as I heard it, I thought, whoa, this is definitely. I can hear where Led Zeppelin, their like pursuit of kind of their world music.
Yeah.
Stuff like I could hear, Your Time Is Gonna Come or 10 Years Gone or something like that.
Absolutely.
I was like, oh, right, Zeppelin must have been really into these guys. I can really hear that in the Jimmy Page production later on,
To that point, Sandy Denny sang on one of the Zeppelin albums on...
Yep.
Ian, I'm sure you're about to...
Zoso. Number 4, Battle of Evermore.
Battle of Evermore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly.
And like for years, I never knew who that was, until we had the internet, and it's just...
So real quick story about that, because obviously the album came with no text, basically. So famously, it's in like the album, they just released the album.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, it was so normal to do that back then. You just have these guest appearances of anyone on there, and people just wouldn't bother crediting people.
I was in the exact same thing where you can hear that it's a different voice to Robert Plant. And I thought it was their bass player, John Paul Jones.
Did you? I thought
I
it
was
was
like-
Grace Slick.
No, so this whole time I had been thinking, like, so you got John Paul Jones with this, like, angelic voice. Why do they not deploy him all the time?
Right.
But yes, all of this to say,
funny.
yes, so she, Sandy Denny, guested on Battle of Evermore, Led Zeppelin 4, the only guest vocalist on a Led Zeppelin album.
Really? Is that true? Wow.
And then, I mean, what a there was a reason for that. Like,
Yeah,
you could,
yeah.
their whateverness, we won't get too deep into it, but their vocal whateverness is one for the ages. Like, it is an epic meeting of stars.
So cool. So were they in close contact in any way? Like,
I have no idea.
I just found it really interesting how I'd never heard this song, and then as soon as it was playing, I was like, oh, that's like, it sounds like a Jimmy Page production,
Yep.
And then obviously, oh yeah, okay, Sandy Denny sings on this song. Like, do they know each other? They like,
Honestly, I think it was probably just the small world of, like, British heavy metal, folkish, rockish.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Jimmy Page will have been in the clubs. He'll been in the studio. Like, Jimmy Page was a creature of the industry, as was John Paul Jones. So,
Yeah.
who knows? And then I'm sure they all toured, when they were all smaller bands, they all toured. Who knows?
Yeah.
But here we go. So I guess one final thought about the story songs on this album, because this album will be a song of story songs. I think story songs are so perfect because there's a succinctness to them. All of these songs are clear stories, start, middle, end. But because they're only a handful of minutes long, they ask way more questions than they answer.
Yes. Yes.
And I think when you really listen to the song, you're like, okay, is this even a fox? Why does he have a castle? Later on, I think there's a lot of, like, random rules that come up in fairy stories where we're not privy to the rules, but we'll get to Tamlin later about the Fairy Queen.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, because I was an earthly knight, I get to ride nearer the town. I was like, I guess that's like this in their bylaws, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
You just have to take their word for it.
You take their word for it. And I think there's so many of these things where it's like, you'll marry the woman who can feel a pee beneath a mattress. And you're like, yeah, okay, cool.
Okay.
Like, that's what we're doing, I guess.
Right.
And I think there's so much of that. And there's also visual where you're like, okay, I don't know why you bury your wife at the top because she was of noble kin, but I'm kind of seeing that image now.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
And I think there's a real, like, they say these outlandish things that are not rules to our modern ear, or they're part of a folk story that the people at the time will have known.
Yeah.
But to us, they're almost jarring and shocking.
It's coded in a way.
Yeah. And so I think because of the unusualness, but also it's freighted with meaning, you're like, I guess there's something in there. So I remember all of these songs very cinematically.
Sure.
well, when you think about the nature of passing down a tale orally,
Yeah.
you have to elicit a visual image to enable the memory to, like, absorb that story. So often people will purposely encode messages in a visual way. But also, say someone picks up a written down folk story, what version of that are we looking at? You look at that one piece and then you'll learn it as best you can, and then you pass it on slightly differently.
Yeah.
So these things evolve continually, don't they?
That's such a good point, Ed, about the visuals. I'm becoming more and more convinced that humans are visual creatures in a fundamental way. And so encoding those images into language is so important. I also, as folk songs get passed down, as folk stories get passed down, parts of them will be retained without the people singing them having any idea what they mean, because they just are, well, these are the words, we've always said this thing. Well, no, I actually don't know what it means.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, the people singing them originally may have understood, but it's a matter of context not having the context, it's just been passed down. And I think present day, there is a distinct lack of being able to decipher plot and narrative without it being handed to you on a platter. So hundreds of years ago, listening to this song, they would get these questions that aren't answered and be able to take them and think through them and get to their own conclusion and learn the lesson or think further on it or something like that. Whereas now, it's just not a tradition of hearing a story or experiencing a story that we're accustomed to.
Not as much, yeah.
And those questions like elicit more of an emotional response as well.
Right.
If something that disturbs you, well, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's all you know. And then with the Renadine character, for example, he just elicits a dark response. As the meaning slowly sinks in, you already dislike that character.
You kind of know who that guy is.
Yeah.
And it's a stock character. Like, that's the essence of a stock character. Where,
Archetype,
Commedia dell'arte or whatever. And, the mean boss or the tricky servant or whatever. And you're like, you see that guy come on stage, you're like, ooh, I already know everything I need to know.
Yeah.
And you can surprise me ironically, or you can play straight into the trope. Doesn't matter.
Yes.
Like, I know the background. Take it away.
Yeah.
I don't need to have watched 3 seasons of this. And, because I actually, funnily enough, this is maybe a teeny bit of a tangent, but I was thinking about, so probably my favorite show of all time, frankly, is The Sopranos.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was thinking about, whilst I was thinking about the concept of like scenes, I was like, what are some of my favorite scenes of The Sopranos? And I got to thinking, would any of them make sense if you sang them in only 3 stanzas?
Wow.
And the answer was a resounding no, because you need to know why there's importance in this whatever. Like, you need to know why the betrayal hurt or why this person's seen with suspicion or whatever. I think the magic of these songs, A, as we said, kind of stock characters, and B, they're all like 2-character songs or maybe 3-character at a push, where you say, here's a thing, here's the other person, here's the other person, here's one thing that happened to them, and the song ends.
Right. Subject, object, action, consequence.
Yep.
Done. That's
That
all
is
you
all.
got.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I think also the implications of all this stuff, we'll get to, you don't know what happened in the castle. You don't even know if she goes to the castle. Later on in Maddie Groves, is there a problem with killing another man in passion? In Tamlin, we kind of know the ending, but does the queen get mad? And actually, we'll get to all that. A lot of these feel like cliffhangers in a sense, but they don't, because that's how these songs work.
Yeah.
The only other fact I had about Renadine, just because this tickled me, I was looking up epic national narratives or whatever, and I was like, Renadine was listed as the Luxembourg national narrative.
Interesting.
Like the epic, the national epic. And it was basically just some Luxembourgish folklorist who collected a bunch of Renadine stories, because they are from around that area.
Yes.
Like, it is central Western Europe, so twixt, Belgium and France and Germany.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a nexus where all of these Renadinic tales happened, and it was a folklorist collected them, and it became, I'll mispronounce this, but like the
Mabinogion.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Where it's like a cycle of tales from an area.
Yeah.
And that's what happened there.
Cool.
So we go on to Matty Groves. So this is yet another traditional folk song, and it's a classic tale of a yeoman having it away with the lord's wife and getting killed. It's a nice classic tale. I'm imagining there's thousands of these
Happening right now.
happening right now. And as a little callback, in The Hunting Girl from our very last special episode, Ian Anderson says, I need to get back to town. I don't want this to end badly for both of us.
Yes.
And this is the tale of what happens if Ian Anderson didn't get back to town.
If they pursue. Yeah.
If they pursue.
That is such you've nailed it exactly. And there are, you're totally right, thousands of variants of this song. I'm thinking of part of the kind of general folk revival moment of this era was the Clancy brothers. You may have heard of them. They're Irish. It had kind of a mix of like really traditional Irish songs and then more modern kind of IRA songs. But they have a song called Courtin' in the Kitchen. Great tune, great story, and it's essentially exactly the same plot as this, except when they're in the canoodling phase. the husband's carriage comes around the door, and the guy jumps up and is like, "What the hell, lady?" And she starts throwing a fuss and saying, "This guy's come into my kitchen and is trying to have his way with me." And the guy runs away and has to join the army to escape. But it is such a common trope. In fact, I recall, the notion of cuckolding was such an obsession culturally that there's this great line in A Winter's Tale where a king thinks he's been cuckolded. He actually hasn't, but he's become obsessed with this idea that his wife is sleeping with somebody else. And he has a line that's funny. The audience all laughs. Then he turns to the audience. It's a soliloquy, and he turns to the audience and says, "If every man whose pond had been fished by another was in this theater tonight, the walls would not be able to contain the massive population that would be in here." He basically turns to the audience and says, "Yeah, you're laughing at it, but it's also you. Someone's fucking your wife right
it's
now.
All happened to you." Yep.
So it's a bit of an obsession culturally.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I guess it makes sense. Like, this obviously is a time and a place, being medieval Europe, where it's obviously super religious, and then obviously this is like a land contract and stuff.
Yep,
bloodlines
and heirs.
This is bloodlines, heirs, inheritance, all this sort of stuff. And so, obviously you're right. This must have just been an obsession all the time. And literal wars were fought about this on the regular back in this time and place. So, yeah. And then I think, zooming ahead to something like Pride and Prejudice, I think it's an instant pathos where it's the two people who have a love of love, and then two people have a love through marriage, and can't have this, can't have that, whatever, when you're torn between what society expects. And I think these types of songs are just instant pathos, and then this ends up being a literal life and death song. And so I think this is one of the most affecting songs on this album.
I kind of got like a completely different idea of what this was about. So I thought it was more like, you've got this lord of the land who's, he feels he's entitled to your allegiance and your service, so he can also take what he wants. So he's got his eyes on the wife of the serf.
I'd be willing to bet there, A, is a tradition of that, and then B, I wonder if there is a variant of the song which is more like that. I mean, this one is pretty clearly like a holiday, a holy day. They go to church, and Lady Duncan, I forget what she is in the song. She's Duncan, I think. Or Lady Donald. Lady Donald spies Maddie Groves at church.
The hottest hookup spot in town.
I mean, I guess it was. Like, it
was the only.
Where else would you be?
It was the only place in town.
It was the only
hookup.
So, at church, they spy him, and they sneak away, and one of his servants is like, "Oh, by the way, there's this guy, Matty Groves, at your manor with your lady," is this song. But I'd be willing to bet there's other versions that are, as you say, that kind of an overbearing lord.
I dropped in the notes here the reference to the Raggle-Taggle Gypsy, which is a folk song that dates back to the 1600s, and there are some very, very parallel moments in it. So for instance, in Matty Grove, we have his confrontation. He's already killed Matty Grove, which is, oh my god, I just love the part of like the whole dialogue between them where he says, get up, for never will it be said, in fair England I slew a naked man." It's like, I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to do it in a gentlemanly way. But after that...
There's honor involved.
There is. It's again, it's formulaic, it's ceremonial. I'm sorry, I would love to fight you to the death, but I only have a pocket knife. That's okay, I have 2 swords, and I'll give you the nicer one, and you can even hit me first.
Yeah.
But Lord Donald took his wife and sat her upon his knee, saying, "Who do you like the best of us, Matty Groves or me?" And then up spoke his dear young wife, who never had been heard to speak so free. "I'd rather a kiss from dead Matty's lips than all of your finery." If we look at the Raggle-Taggle Gypsies, it's a similar thing. She runs off with the gypsy. The Lord confronts her and says, "Wait a minute, don't you like the feather bed that I bought you? Don't you like your sheets? Don't you, what about your newly wedded lord?" In some cases, he says, "What about your baby that you just had?" And she says in response, "Oh, how could I leave your house and your land? How could I leave your money? Oh, how could I leave this and this and this? I'd rather have a kiss from the yellow gypsy's lips than all of your lands and your money. Oh." So even the lines themselves are part of a tradition. Of course, for her, it ends a little bit differently because he is enraged, stabs her through the heart, and you've referenced the burying moment.
Buries her at the top
Yeah.
because she was of noble kin.
But I loved her, so we'll bury her at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely hear what you're saying about and I guess it's kind of what I was getting at with Pride and Prejudice, that there's like the rules, the lord and lady marriage and stuff like that. And then there's something about Maddie Groves has spoken to her. And it's not spelled out as clearly in this song. We don't know why she likes Maddie Groves, really. But, in the case of
We can take some guesses.
Yeah, well, and it's like there's something exciting and whatever, about let me take me away with you or whatever. I don't need all of your manors and your lands and whatever.
To Ed's point, I think it was Ed's point, this is coming from a period where the tradition was women were viewed as political pawns, and so would be married off to the richest, most powerful, typically oldest man that was available. And that did not necessarily set up a situation where romantic love would blossom. So a lot of these songs, regardless of the ending, are in the tradition of the troubadours saying, hey, but wait a minute, let's actually think about love. Love is important, whether it's a bad ending or a happy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting note, Raggle Gypsy is Roud 1. It's the very first of the Roud index.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Also, I think this speaks so potently, much because of the same reason as Renardine, that the cuckolder and the cuckoldee are also kind of stock characters.
Yes.
They show up through generations, and they are in some way relatable, whether it has happened to you or you have done it, or it's just a natural fear that you have. It speaks to the human condition.
I dug my keys into the side of his pretty little souped-up four-wheel drive and carved my name into his leather seats. It's evergreen.
Yep.
That's it.
It's an evergreen theme. Yeah, and I was going to say, I think, we also talked about this with the burying at the top, noble kin and all this stuff. I think all of these, I don't want to say rules, but yeah, rules, norms, whatever you want to say, they're these eerie little details that, again, stick in your head because they're not normal to us now. And, again, I think it was the audience at the time might have known all of these rules, but for now they're just these like crazy little things that just stick in there. You're like, huh, that's really visual.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much more disturbing. The murder is so much more disturbing because it is
Formulaic. Yeah. No, and I think the fact that, as you say, they have a conversation about it, like it's about to happen, it is now happening, it has now happened, and that's like this back half of the song. I think it really does, it's a sticking point there. So, shall we talk about the song now? So this song actually is Shady Grove, an Appalachian song, as we were talking about, that they had borrowed from, well, Appalachia came over from England, and they reborrowed it back over for this song. And I listened to a bunch of versions of this song, Shady Grove, as just bluegrass. And I can confirm that this version of the song is just so much huger. And I think it's a testament to, they slow it down. The drumming is more massive, and Sandy Denny's voice is Sandy Denny's voice. I think the song itself is beautiful, but I think to really sit in it and slow it down and not blast ahead kind of bluegrass style.
Yeah.
That being said, I think its placement on the album, being right after the slow and spooky Renardine, I think is just this perfect little pick-me-up. And obviously it's got the back half of the song, which is just a straight, rocking.
Yeah.
This is where the rock comes in, isn't it? I think the first thing I wrote down was drum kit. Because it was the first thing that hit me is that dry sounding kit. That the cymbals are quite low, but the skins are
Quite
thick,
tight
and
and
deep,
thick.
and it's like it's such a 70s sound to me now. That drum kit. But yeah, as soon as that kicks in, I'm like, oh, now it's taking me here. So you think of these three tracks in succession. It's quite a journey we've gone on already.
Yeah.
And it's just 3 tracks.
It's just 3 tracks. There's a point where the bass and the guitar like riff in complete unison, and it's quite a tricky sounding riff. And it's like for a young musician, I'm like, wow, that's really that's accomplished bit of technicality there. And it sounds like they just do it in their sleep. It's really good. And then it kind of finishes with the fiddle player. Calling him a fiddle player, is that because it's
David
folk?
Swarbrick. Yep.
It's a violin, for God's sake. But it's but he he takes it to this kind of, it almost sounds like a North African kind of like Moroccan sort of melody that surprised me. But again, I know there is, that does come into that whole idea of like, old folk having the same
universal
scales.
folk.
And it's, but to me, like there was like, oh, that's that Moroccan vibe. And again, thinking about Zeppelin and them wanting to go in that direction, I was like, they definitely got really excited about this album. It's like it stuck with them. And I guess it's stuck with progressive rockers in the 70s in general, I think. This I don't know if the whole album, but this particular song just was, oh my God, I can hear all those things.
You can hear all the bits.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, thinking about the length of this song, it's 8 minutes long, just over. Not that that's super unusual at the time, but that is a distinctive choice to say, this will never be played on the radio. We are making no attempts that any of this music will ever be played in that way. So given that, we're going to give ourselves the space to make it 8 minutes if we want to.
Why not?
Taking up that space,
valid.
holding that space for the music.
No, and I was going to say, I think this was a gigging band, but I don't get the sense that they were ever a commercial band, nor ever really had the chance to be. I think they're, at the time, and even now, a folkster band. And they are the ones who put on the Cope Ready Festival, which is, I guess, a meeting.
Crop Ready. Yeah.
Crop Ready. But as in, like, I think they are leaders within the community, but they were never going to be hit single people.
To that point, Ian, that like they're your favorite folks band. They're your favorite folk band's favorite folk band. To misquote Chapel Roan quoting Sasha Colby. There was this interesting relationship that we've read about with the Jethro Tull kind of tradition of poaching members from Fairport Convention. And it wasn't just musicians. It was also, tech people, managers, etc. And someone, and everybody has their opinions, and it's hard to know. One of the Tull band members said that, especially in the 80s, it felt like Ian was trying to capture some of the bonhomie, the good feelings that existed in Fairport, that always seemed like the Fairport people were genuinely having fun, genuinely enjoyed playing together.
Interesting.
Just having a great time. And Tull seemed to be a little bit more dry, a little bit more professional, a little bit more removed. And that it seemed like Ian, vampire-like, was trying to siphon off some of that joy.
Some of that bonhomie.
And bring it into Tull. But I wonder if there was this sense of like, we really just love playing these folk tunes here.
I know, and I remember an interview with, I'm going to say Ashley Hutchins or whatever, and he talks about the excitement every day of showing up to the studio, knowing that you get to work on this stuff. And I think, Sandy Denny, as you will find out later in her career, is a big personality, but she's not Ian Anderson where she owns the band.
Right.
Yeah.
She is a big personality within, in this case, a constellation of 5 or 6 people,
right.
all working together on this music. And I think the fact that you get to hear each of them do a thing, they all shine in their way.
It does feel much more like a collective than a band leader band vibe.
And I think in that sense, like, obviously I said it's Sandy's album, and that's only because she's like a generational talent, but I don't feel like this is Sandy and the Five Dwarves. Like, it is, it is 6 people contributing amazing music together, and I think that does shine through in this album.
Yeah.
Ed, did you want to talk about Richard's guitar at all? Because the second half of this song is just
the last 4 minutes is noodles.
Is just noodles, but as in, like, I think it's a crazy outro. I don't know what they were trying to say about the narrative.
Just the his playing to me sounds more like the blues revivalist sort of style, which is so common in the exciting English guitarists of the time. So it's not surprising that he leans that way a little bit, even if he's not trying to. But just his equipment and stuff is very simple. So I guess that gets out of the way of his playing. Like I said to begin with, there's that kind of that nice in between thing. He doesn't play like searing overdrive solos or anything. It's like kind of like little crunch. And I think that comes from having a driven amp where you just kind of turn your volume down a little bit. So it's still clean, but
it's got enough saturation.
It doesn't have that crunch that you kind of associate with 70s rock and stuff. So he's mastered his equipment, and I think it's because it's simple.
Yep.
You know, like I think he plays, like just looking at pictures, I've seen him. He's playing like a Les Paul Gold Top with the P90, so it's not a powerful output guitar. And he at some point you see him with another hollow body guitar, Gibson guitar. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of stuff, and I think that's good. Gets out of the way.
Kind of as close to a folk guitar sound as you can get with an electric guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I think it would sound insane if he had a bunch of cool effects, because on the other side of your ear is David Swarbrick's violin, which is pretty unadorned. I think he does mic it, but other than that, it's pretty unadorned. And I think to have two clean instruments, one in each ear,
Yeah.
also not taking like insane solos or anything, I think they complement the songs beautifully.
And that's the thing, like from the first track, you hear the unison violin and guitar playing. Got no bones of it at all. I think it's you don't always have to be experimenting and striving to find new sounds. They're doing that in the way they're interpreting the song. They don't have to be, looking for the newest gear
Sonic
or anything like that. Yeah.
Explorers. Yeah.
It's like haute cuisine versus a really good steak. Just salt and pepper, throw it on the grill. It works because it's always worked. You don't need emulsions and foams and things like that. I mean, they're great in their own right, but sometimes you just want that steak.
Looking at you, Jimi Hendrix. And your goddamn emulsions.
This is yeah, this is meat and potatoes rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. There's something so elemental and pure in its simplicity, and especially if it's done well, you've got so much talent behind the simplicity of the instrument that that's all you need.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, in that case, we'll wrap up right before Farewell.
Perfect. It's perfect.
And come back, a perfect segue, and we'll come back next time with Farewell from Liege and Lief, 1969 Fairport Conventions. 1969. Wow, I yodered that one. Anyways, it has been a pleasure to have the Feckless Momes, Nick Miguel, and Omen Sade.
Thank you so much for having us. Look forward to being back.
Thank you for being here. And thank you, of course, Ed Thomas.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, guys. And we will see you next time for part 2 of Liege and Lief.